It's a really interesting backdrop you've got there, Sylvia. I can't quite make out what it is. Looks like you're in a cave almost. Is it stone? Oh, you're muted. I can't hear you.
My goodness. It's just my wall. It's an old house. It's not stone. It's done by hand. That's why it looks like that.
Okay, yeah.
It's behind my bed. I just woke up. It's still very early here. My
Okay,
turn.
yeah, good. Yeah, with the lighting and everything, it looks like you're in a cave.
Yes. The autumn is coming here, and then usually at this time of it's daytime already, but now it's starting to, you know, winter is coming slowly, slowly.
Yes, yes. Yeah, we're going the other way here. We're going into summer, so the days are getting longer.
Yes. I don't know how to put the lighting so that you can see something. I'm trying to
Mm.
not to make it too violent for me since I'm just out of sleep.
Yes, yes. Oh, be relaxed. You're right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think Leonard is also just out of bed. I can see that. Good morning.
Mm. I read a really interesting article a couple of days ago on one of the newsletters I get from I think it was from Psych magazine, so Psychology magazine, and they were talking about that period when we're neither awake nor asleep. That happens on the way into sleep and on the way out of sleep. And it was really interesting article. And it suggested really strongly that this is a time when we set ourselves up for a whole lot of things. So on the way into sleep, we're setting ourselves up for putting stuff into long-term memory, uh, and a variety of other things. But when we're on the way out of sleep, we're also setting ourselves up for the flavor of the day kind of thing. So it's a period of time when it could be really advantageous to put positive messages into the brain. A time when we could use it like self-hypnosis, uh, when we could set ourselves up to have a better sleep, and when we're waking up to have a more relaxed and peaceful day as well. Those things. You know, it makes me think we could make up a meditation to play at those times while we're going to sleep and waking up. It'd be a bit harder when we're waking up because you can set something for, say, half an hour on your way to sleep. but you wouldn't know unless you wake up to an alarm. You could probably put it on an alarm of some kind and have it play that way. But it would be an interesting experiment to do. I think it would be very, very relevant to the stuff that we do here. You know.
Yeah, actually, I also read something about like the first hours after waking up and also before going to bed that yeah, I don't know if it's true, but it's like not that healthy to immediately take in information when you have just woken up, or like to watch the news before going to bed, for example.
Mm.
So I try to avoid that
Yeah, yeah,
usually.
that makes sense, doesn't it? I was thinking of intentionally putting in positive things, but you're talking about accidentally putting in negative things. You know, of course, the news is almost always negative, isn't it? So if
Yeah.
you watch
At
that
any
before,
time of the day.
of course, yeah, but it's much more powerful, the effect, if you had it just before you went to bed, you know? Yeah, because
Yeah,
obviously your mind is going to cogitate on it.
my new habit is also to check the news only once a week. And there is a program which is like the news in 3 minutes or something. And
Right.
actually, I was really a news junkie before, but then, yeah, I don't want to say you don't miss out on so many
No, of
things, but
course.
actually,
Yeah,
it doesn't make really sense to take in all this negative information
yeah,
every day.
yeah. Well, I now get a couple of newsletters. Um, that one of them I just got a moment ago. It's called Fix the News. I'll just open it up, and it says, um, about the Clinton Global Initiative and the positive things that they've come up with. Uh, the home of the Industrial Revolution closes the last coal power plant. California bans all plastic bags at grocery stores. Tripling renewable energy worldwide by 2030 is within reach. Indian rhinos thrive and American manatees get a lifeline. The OECD's century-long reliance on coal power is fizzling out. More green, less plastic for the United Kingdom. Barcelona's subways are powering trains, stations, and local EVs. How humanity is fighting back against invasive rodents. Colombians embrace climate transition with $40 billion investment. Rooftop solar is trending in Australia. US Forestry Services win the arborist lottery. Time travel in Australia and happy sea turtles in Greece, and so on and so on. It just goes on like that. So I get a newsletter like this every couple of days, and it's amazing how much good news there is that you never hear about on the news.
Yeah.
You know, they never. I guess it doesn't get clicks or something to put good news there. It's good news is boring, bad news is exciting. It's crazy. Yeah. And it's not just the conservative newspapers, it's all news media. Yeah, so you take someone like Fix the News, that's what they call that one, uh, and they come up with a huge list, like 30 things in one go. And then a couple of days later, it'll be another 30 things that's good that's happened. Yeah. So it is there. We just don't know it's there. You know, one I read a few days ago was like crime in the United States is down to levels that it was in 2020, so 4 years ago. You know, things like that you never hear about. Mm. My dog's all excited about something. She's trembling.
It's the first time I see you out of your car.
Yes, yes. My wife and my daughter have gone on a road trip up north, and they've taken the car. And so
Ah, that's
I have
why.
I have the house to myself. Um,
Okay.
so they'll just turn off the background, and here's my friend,
Oh, what's her name?
Bronny. Uh,
Well, Vince, I would need some help.
sorry?
I need some help with an
Yes,
issue.
yes.
Can
Yeah.
I tell you? So let's say a friend from Colombia, a woman who is closer to my son's age, but she's a good friend of mine. She got married in Italy a few months ago in the south, far from here. And she suggested now she would come to visit us because we're very close. She's very close to me, but she's also a very good friend of my son. So she arranged on the telephone with him, and then she would always report to me. I suggested this date. Is it okay for you? Yes, it's okay. So they arranged that she would come and visit and stay here for about 10 days, maybe 10 days. So she arranged it mainly with my son. What happened is that I got a migraine. I wasn't well on the day before she came. And nevertheless, my son disappeared for the whole time. He wasn't here. He wasn't available to spend time with her and neither with me. Not only my son is grown up, he's very grown up. And he not only he disappeared, he never he didn't even tell me, look, mom, I've got some other things to do. I can't be here. I'm sorry. Anything. He didn't even say. So I was lying in the dark for days and days and days with this migraine. I couldn't stand, noises, light, anything. I had this host here from far away. She traveled 14 hours to get here from the south of Italy, as I said. I could not be with her. I could not even, dedicate her some time, cook something for her. I was just feeling too bad. I couldn't get up.
Mm.
She was sort of on her own. My son was out of reach. And I was furious, and I said, how is this possible? A friend is coming from far away, and you know that I have a migraine and feeling bad, and you don't even show up. And she's your friend. I mean, so I had a reaction mostly inside, but not that I. At some point, when he came after a week, I exploded. Not I exploded, not violently, but anyway, I really told him
Mm.
with a certain emphasis that this is not irresponsible behavior, that he's behaving like a child. And, I told him a few things. And I was very deluded by him. And, I went on and on for a good 10 minutes or 15. And I said, no, but I was, he's very heartful, but he has these irresponsible behaviors every now and then. Used to be very often. I thought this phase was over because he's now 34. But as a teenager and as a young man, he used to be not very responsible, not very responsible, let's say. So a whole mess I did. A whole mess, because then he reacted more. He disappeared again. So this is the situation, more or less. I can give you more details, but I don't think it's important. Then I traveled. Then I worked with the curriculum, and I said, "This is why am I having such a strong reaction? Because I really felt in the right to react, and I really felt." My point of view is the correct one. But since I know that you're not really entitled, there's no me to be entitled to anything. Why is it now? Who is it? Why? So that is reacting like this so strongly, because after the reaction, my migraine, even with the reaction, my migraine even got stronger. So I was in this thing for about 12 days, in this migraine, in this head exploding. It was just awful. So I wrote down a few things here. Let me see. There is, in the fourth fetter, there is 10 pointers, one of which says, even if, for example, even if he never shows me any love, it's fine. I can be compassionate with them, with him in this case. Nobody needs to change, etc., etc. And in that moment, and still now, if I think about it, I don't agree.
Yes, the problem is that what you're thinking about is the content of the story. And the moment you engage with that, you're lost. Right? You need to step outside of that and look at the fact that the story exists to see what's going on. So for me, it shouts out that it is obvious that there is a belief underneath all of that. And a very broad way to look at that belief, to start investigating, is to recognize that that belief says this could be different. So even before you say it should be different, there is the belief that says it could be different. And then, of course, you get back into the story about how it could be different. But don't do that for the moment. Just recognize that there is a belief that something could be different. When in fact, it's done and finished. How could it be different?
Yes, Vince, but my difficulty, obviously, I can recognize that this is how it is, and so it manifested like that. So this is reality. But my thing is also about being the mother of this being. And, it's like I taught him. I didn't teach
Okay.
him this.
Okay, so you've failed. You were a shit teacher. You failed. You failed to teach him how he should be. Now, do you
Okay.
feel bad about that?
Obviously, I failed.
That's a joke in a way, isn't it? Because you didn't
Yeah.
fail. How could you fail? But neither could you succeed. You see, because you think that your job was to be a teacher, but that's not what your job was, and he never saw you as a teacher.
What do you mean? You don't you think that a parent, well, in brackets, I'm going to tell you that I was a teacher at school also, but this has nothing to do now.
Yeah, yeah.
But maybe it underlines that for me it's really an issue. I mean, don't you think that a parent's role is also teaching a few things to the children?
Well, let's look at reality. How much are you like your parents? How much are you like your mother? A child's job is to rebel against what they were taught by their parents, to evolve. One would hope that rebelling is in a good direction, but it's sometimes not. But essentially, I swore as a child I would never treat my kids like my parents treated me. And if they were teachers, then I would be trying to do it like they did it. But see, they did a shit job. They didn't know how to be a good parent. But that's my parents, not your parents. But essentially, children will learn more from their peers than they'll learn from their parents. In the early days, it's the parents. In the very early days, by the time they're say 4, 5 years old, they're starting to take more notice of what their friends say than what their parents say. And by the time they're teenagers, they think their parents know nothing. It's not until they get into their 20s that they start to realize that their parents did know something, but it's too late to learn anything from them then. Or maybe it's a different kind of lesson. But as a parent, you could say that your job is just to love your kids, not to teach them things. But I know it's a common misconception that we have as parents. We have to teach them how to cope in life. So the father who's really strict with them will say, well, it's a hard world out there. You have to learn how to be strong. And then he'll beat them. He'll justify it that way. But no, that's not what it is. But if you believe that, and it seems you do, that your job is to teach them how to be, then you failed, didn't you, with your son? He's going to be his own person. He's not going to be the way you think he should be. He isn't the way you think he should be, even though it fluctuates, and sometimes he's more the way you think he should be, and other times he's less the way you think he should be. But Khalil Gibran said something really brilliant about kids, and he said something, I'm paraphrasing, but it's something along the lines of, our kids are only on loan to us, and really our job is to just watch them as they grow up. We can't shape them the way we think we should.
Yeah. Okay, but let's start from a very, very practical point of view. So there I was with his friend who came from far away to see him, me sick in bed, and he absent. And then after 7 days, he briefly showed up. What would the normal thing to do? What would be the proper thing to do?
Get someone to hold him while you whip him.
Get what? I didn't understand.
The normal thing to do would be to punish him severely. But that's not the right.
Not the normal. It's the best I'm asking for.
Yes, yes. No. See, how much do you think that this situation prolonged and even contributed to your migraine?
Yes, it did.
Yes, yes,
It
yes.
did.
Now,
Yes.
now, what was it that was contributing to the migraine? Was it the situation, or was it how you felt about the situation?
Second one.
Yes.
What can I
Now,
do in order
or do
not to
you,
feel that way about the
yes.
situation?
Do you have
I'm
any
aware.
control? Do you have any control about how you feel about the situation?
Do I have any control?
Right. Could you change the way you feel about the situation?
Maybe if
You
I
couldn't
become
at the,
aware of, if
yeah,
I become
maybe,
aware of certain things that I'm not yet aware of, it
yes.
might change.
So let's not talk about the future. That will be different, but let's talk about at the time you had no choice, did you?
No,
You couldn't think differently about it. And therefore
no,
you couldn't feel differently about it. And therefore you were helpless. You were there
yes.
in that situation and the whole thing made it worse. Now this gets tricky because if you learn a lesson from that and you recognize that if you didn't feel so bad about it, it wouldn't impact on you in such a big way, then maybe in the future you could feel different about it. But no, I don't think you could unless you recognize that the underlying belief about it is that you think it could be different. Not just that it should be different, but that it could be different. Now, at the time that it was happening, of course, it couldn't be different. It was what it was, wasn't it? And if in future those things come up for you and the situation is similar, again, you'll be trapped in the fact that you can't do anything about it. Right? So if also the idea comes up that, oh, I remember a conversation with Vince where we considered that maybe if I had a different approach to this, I wouldn't be feeling quite so bad about it. If that's one of the conditions that exists for you in the future, that might be enough to change it if it adds up, if other conditions add up. But if you get hooked into this idea that, well, you start with, it should be different. And I am right about this. It should be different. And my attitude is the right attitude and his attitude is the wrong attitude. Right? Then you're locked in again. So you can't control, he can't control. So how can you control his attitude towards this? You think by being angry at him that will change it in the future? Maybe it will, but probably not.
Um, so I understand what you say. But then what I tried to do these days was to really to see what is underneath my attitude, because the first thing I felt was a big pain in my heart, not even being furious. This
Mm.
was just after he had a certain reaction,
Yep,
um, and didn't even say I'm sorry, and didn't even,
yep,
so
yep.
this
So
was
would you say
second.
this was sadness?
It was like a pain. I felt um, like something was squeezed. I felt like squeezed, and a tightness, such a contraction in here. Um, and I tried to look at what is underneath this contraction? Why is it so strong? I mean, I'm aware that not all mothers have such a strong reaction if they weren't would have if they were in this situation. So why am I reacting in such
Okay.
an extreme
Wrong road to go down. Right.
again?
Again, you're getting involved in the story, you see.
But no, Vince, I want to explain it properly. I was just staying with the feeling and feeling and feeling and feeling and feeling until at a certain point, it was like this thought came up that I'm not enough somehow. Whatever I do, it's not enough. It's like this thought popped up, and then I stayed for a little moment with the thought, and a few memories came, and I said, well, maybe this is finally my toxic starting point.
Could
Because
be.
when Camila is talking about the toxic starting point, I have never really been able to see which my toxic starting point is. So staying with this allowed me, maybe I don't know if I'm doing it properly, if it's right.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I
That's
think
good. Yeah.
I think I have certain feeling underneath or belief or whatever that was formed when I was very young, that whatever I do is not enough.
Yes.
That I'm not recognized. It was the same thing. I was not recognized by my son as
Yes. That triggers off the same thing that you learned. Okay.
so
It does sound
maybe.
like a toxic starting point. It does sound like
So
that.
what am I going to do with this toxic starting point? Because I think I do have this feeling, belief that whatever I do, it's not going to be enough. I
Yes.
have to be more, um, more, better in some way.
No. So
This is the belief that I'm
feeling,
recognizing. I'm not
feeling like,
saying
yeah. If you adopted at some point
I did.
idea that you are not enough, right? Fixing that does not mean feeling that you are enough. See, that's
No, but what can I
the
do?
logic.
What
Well, what you can do, you started to do it well, and that is that you stayed with that sensation, and that took you to this realization that there was something there. So the next step is that you have to bring your adult understanding and compassion to little Sylvia, where she learned, where she developed the emotion, not the thought, the emotion that she was not enough. So the way I describe this, the best thing that you can do for this is you have to visit her. She's stuck in the past, right? And she has embedded cellular memory of these teachings, these learnings, that she is not enough, right? But she learned them when she was so naive and innocent that she was unable to objectify the situation and see that it wasn't her that was not enough, but that she learned that from the circumstances in which she existed at the time. And so you have to take that message back to young Sylvia, and you have to love her, and you have to sit with her, and you have to get the story through to her that she was innocent and unable to see the bigger picture because she was so young and naive and innocent. And you have to sit with her until she understands that message. Now, that's not words. You can't use adult words to get that message through to her. What you have to do is you have to sit with her and open your heart to her. You have to tell her that it's not her fault. You have to tell her that the people who taught her that were also innocent, that they were simply expressing their own problems in the way that they taught her that how to be. They were also innocent in this. So then she, as a young person, needs to not only understand her own innocence, but she also needs to recognize the innocence in the other people involved, like her parents or whoever was involved. Very likely her parents, maybe teachers at school, maybe friends, who knows. It's not likely to be one incident where she learned that she is not enough. It's likely, very likely to have been repeated experiences.
Yes, it's repeated.
Yes.
Yes.
So when she gets that, because you're sitting beside her and you're very, very patient, and you're just holding her hand or putting your arm around her and holding her and you'll know when she's got the message, because she will relax into you. She will start to merge with you when she gets the message that she doesn't need to feel guilt because it wasn't her, it was the circumstances, right? She also doesn't need to feel shame as a result of the guilt. Because what young kids do is they blame themselves for these circumstances. They say, well, it's not my, they don't recognize that it's their circumstances that teach them this. They say, it must be me. There's something wrong with me, that I'm not enough. I can never please. No matter what I do, no matter how hard I try, I can't succeed in pleasing. It will always be not enough. And when she can recognize that it's circumstances that are teaching her that, and she begins to relax into you, then it's like you can pick her up and carry her back into the present, back into you as an adult Sylvia, and integrate her, and then it will be finished. You know, we no longer see what your son's, that circumstances that you related to, that triggered you, what your son did, that triggered a cellular memory of this thing. That's why it is called a toxic starting point. You were triggered back into feeling like you are not enough. You're not enough as a mother. You failed as a parent because you're not enough. Right? But it's not
It's
about being a parent. It's about
it,
carrying that feeling of not enough from way, way, way back when.
yeah, Vince, and then when I got this feeling of whatever I do, I'm not enough. It even went further for a moment, and it went like as far as feeling um, if I don't do things for people,
Yes.
if I don't do things for people, I will be like alone in the world and I will die.
Mm.
Something like very extreme. And it's in a way, it's sort of nonsense
Of course it is.
because
Yes.
I,
Can you
I
see?
had a good childhood. I'm not somebody who had one trauma after the other and stuff like this.
Yeah,
No,
yeah, yeah. So can
but
you
I
see
was
how this is a
like, "Hmm."
compensation?
Sorry,
Can you see how this doing things for other people is a compensation for not feeling like you're not enough?
I never,
It's your attempt to be enough.
I never saw it like this before because I'm not a pleaser. I just love, I love to do things for people. I always thought that I love to be there for people. I have this helpful attitude.
Yes, yes.
I've always had it, and I never before now, I put it in relation with
Yeah.
this experience. It's the
This
first
won't
time.
change. You'll always feel good about helping other people, right? But really, you want to help your son and you can't. So helping other people where you can get acknowledgement that you are okay is something that you do. It's become part of your personality, and it's a good part. I hope you never lose that. You won't lose that. But you'll also stop blaming yourself for the fact that your son doesn't show you that same appreciation. He probably feels it, but he can't show it to you for some reason.
What was shocking to me is that he does feel appreciation, but then all of a sudden he just, is just not there. He just disappears in the worst of situation.
Because
And
he's not got his own shit to handle.
it doesn't fit with my image of him. It
Yes.
doesn't fit with
Yeah. And he never will. He never will, because he's not you. So your image of him, which you recognize, so you're well advanced there. You recognize that it's an image you've got of him, right? But that's your idealist, your ideal situation of that. It's not him. He's separate to you, you see. He's not you. And he can't
But
be.
Vince, one question. Then it occurred to me. No, I said, like, as a reaction, I said, no, I will stop being there and available for everybody in whatever situation, because people are not there for me anyway. So, I will stop being like that. This is I will change my attitude. But this is a reaction, so it's also not appropriate. How can I say? It's sort of difficult to explain.
Yeah, I get it. But you don't worry about that. So you can say you'll change your attitude, but you won't. You can try to change it, but you won't.
There is always there is already a mountain of laundry there in the bathroom, and I'm not washing it. But it's I see the childish side of it. I know it's childish,
Yeah.
but it's almost in a manner of teaching myself.
Yes. Well, you try things. Life's a big experiment, isn't it? And you learn from things. So things will change, but not because you tell yourself they will. That comes after. That's additional. See, you're still believing the content of your thoughts,
Yes.
and they're not believable. They're as believable as anything you can find on television or on Netflix or something. The content of your thoughts. The fact that the thought exists and that something triggered it, that's believable. But don't go looking for why. Always go with what. Right? And you did that with when you had that heart contraction and you stayed with the sensation, then the stories revealed themselves to you. That's a good thing. But if you go, oh, why is it here? Then you head off down some rabbit hole looking for, and you're just in more stories. It'll be very unusual for you to see what's actually going on when you go, why? Because you can only respond with more thought to that question. So you're not looking for thoughts that come as a result of other thoughts. You're looking for thoughts that come as a result of being with sensation. There's a different quality of thought, a different feel about that thought.
Mm-hmm. I understand what you say. And I also recognize that there is a belief here that comes up every now and then, because it's not the first time I recognize this belief. And the belief says there are thoughts that are more true than others. There are a few thoughts are not true, okay, but there are a few that are quite true. So it's something that I have a real hard time stopping believing. I just
Yes,
think.
I get that. I get that. We can't change a belief because we want to.
How can there not be a few thoughts that are true?
Well,
It's there. It's
let's put it this way. No thoughts are true. No thoughts are false. Right? All thoughts are just thoughts. So instead of saying there are some thoughts that are true, because that's a trap, let's say there are some thoughts that it is more appropriate to listen to. Now, you get that? Listen to. Listen to, meaning we are receivers only. We're not responders as such. We're just receivers. So when we start off with, it's appropriate to say all thoughts are bullshit. Every one of them, not a single thought is going to be useful to you. You don't need a thought to jump out of the road of the bus. You don't need a thought to do your shopping. You can do all of that without thinking. Right? But when we do that, when we get around to where you are, we get around to where we have a much clearer picture of the way reality works, right? Then and your experience was exactly this, when you stay with the sensation, what will happen is your intuition will reveal something to you in the form of a thought. But those thoughts are never a statement. Those thoughts always end with a question mark. They are always a possibility, but they have a feeling that they are right. Right? Not truth, not even true, just a feeling that this is a thought worth taking some notice of. And so your intuition is just, it's your intuition, but the only way it can express something to you is via a thought in this case. And so they have a special feeling about them, these thoughts. And they're the ones that it's worth taking notice of. But any thought that comes from another thought, right? So the intuition thoughts come from sensation. I was talking to somebody earlier today and I described it this way and I thought it was good. So I'll give it to you. When you're moving in the direction of getting more intimate with a sensation, looking for more detail about the experience of a sensation, thoughts will float by and you can imagine them like they're a book, right? And they have a title. And when they float by, you recognize the title of the book, of the thought, and then you nudge it over into the background. Just go and wait over there, you say to that thought, while I get closer to this sensation. What you don't do is open the book and start reading the stories. You don't engage with the story, you just recognize the title as it goes past.
Yes, it's a good image. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a very good image. It's helpful. Yeah.
And as you get closer to that sensation, you'll find thoughts will start to appear that have a different quality about them. Their flavor will be different. And that flavor will be, this is worth looking at. Right? There's nothing categorical about it. It's always a suggestion. And then what will happen is exactly what happened to you. You will see stories that come from the past. You'll see those stories that give you an idea about where what the starting point of this particular thing was.
Okay, and so just to engage a little bit more with what you said earlier about just sitting with little Sylvia, um, just feeling into her, um, in is it that, in a manner of speaking, you talk to her, or
Yeah, you communicate with emotion.
you don't tell her words like, don't worry, or
No,
stuff.
you're not trying to convince her of anything, right? No, there may be words involved, but the words convey emotion, right? Then the emotion that you're wanting to get over to her is, you're okay. You're okay. You did not, you took the blame for this on yourself because you did not see the bigger picture. Right? But you're conveying that to her with how you feel, and it's a heartfelt embracing. And what you're also trying to help her do is forgive everything, all of the circumstances that led to this situation. And in particular, of course, forgiveness might be about the other people involved, because they were also totally innocent. They had no control over what they were doing. Right? So firstly, the guilt that she took on was not because of anything inherent in her. It was because of the circumstances in which surrounded her, in which she was swimming at the time. Those circumstances are what led to her feeling that there was something wrong with her. And that's not true. There was nothing wrong with her. She took that on, and then she started to develop ways of avoiding that. And as she went through life, she developed a whole lot of ways of avoiding that. Produced certain stories, did certain things, tried to please other people, was always there for other people. All of these things as a way of avoiding that feeling, because it's such a shitty feeling to feel like never enough, cannot possibly be enough. Something fundamental is missing, and that is whatever led to enoughness, which isn't the case. So she didn't need to feel the guilt, and then she didn't need to feel the shame as a result of that, and then she didn't need all of the other avoidance behaviours, because now as an adult, you can see that she was entirely innocent. There was nothing fundamentally wrong with her, was there? So how do you have to use your intuition, you have to use your imagination, but how do you transmit that feeling of you're okay with your emotions to her? That's the trick. I mean, you can use words, but the words themselves aren't they're just the carrier of that emotion.
Mhm.
And you know when that it's happening, because she will relax against you. She will start to merge with you. And she won't do that until she understands what, not just understands, until she accepts what you're saying to her, what you're communicating to her, that she was totally innocent. So we're at the point where we learn, we're fundamentally human and really, really uncorrupted and innocent. And then we start to learn through our environment and through our experiences that there's something wrong. Well, of course, there isn't anything wrong. But it's people who have already accepted that there's something wrong that are teaching her that there's something wrong. And that's an innocent thing as well. So it's like it's an emergence out of innocence into a corrupted human being. And that's why we go back to that point. That's that toxic starting point right at the very beginning, where we lose our innocence by adopting these things that we think are part of us. We accept them as part of us when they're in fact not. You might need to do it a few times, but you'll know. It'll just be that she will just relax into you and start to merge with you when she gets the message. But she's going to get it at a heart level, not at a head level.
And how about daily, I mean, my behavior in the now? He flew off, my son, I'm talking about, he flew off to France. He's in France now, just, holiday, visiting his grandma. And, I, if I have to be honest, I still feel pissed with him. He's sending me, little hearts through the WhatsApp. I don't know what to do, because I recognize that my reaction is sort of toxic, but I also still feel that I'm pissed. No, I don't want to answer him. I don't feel like making peace with him. On a level, this is my truth, although it's not the ultimate truth.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. Now, look, as you heal up this stuff in yourself, and you are more open and accepting of him, he will be more amenable to change as well. So telling him he's a naughty boy isn't going to work to change him. It's just going to cause him to be defensive and avoid you and so on. Right? But when he feels like you accept him, then he'll be more relaxed and more amenable to being a different way. A lot of what he does is just defensive stuff. It's not like, so it's one thing to say, oh, I can describe it as wrong, but it's much more appropriate to see that what it is he's defending against his own toxic starting points. He's just reacting to him feeling like he's not enough, or whatever his version of that is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Can you see how they say, in this when we get into this spiritual shit, how they say, if you want to change the world, you start by changing yourself. And with you being less critical of him, he'll be more open to be relaxed with you, and more open about expressing stuff with you, and much more amenable to change. This is the way to do it, not by telling him he's a naughty boy. That just gets him more defensive. And so he runs away to France or whatever.
Okay. Thank you, Ince.
Now, what you must not do is take any of this to mean that there's something wrong with you. There is something about you, but it's not wrong. And you're addressing it, which is great.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Here's a good one to leave you with. Isn't it great that you turned out to be such a shit parent? It is, because without that, you would never have got in touch with your own toxic starting point. It's brilliant. So all roads lead to something, somewhere. Mm. That's why there can
Right.
never be anything that's wrong. It always is just what it is. And the opposite of wrong isn't right. The opposite of wrong is not wrong.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Vince. I still can feel that underneath this, I'm never gonna be enough. There is another thing which I touched upon. I just mentioned it. I touched upon a little bit, but it's about I'm going to die, like I'm alone on the planet. Something like really feeling a feeling of dying, a feeling of dying. And maybe I will leave this for another
Mm.
session, because I want to explore it a little bit more on my own first,
Yes, yes.
because I don't know really what to say about it, but it's a big issue for me.
Yep.
It's a
Just
big
sit
issue
with
for me.
and
I
use.
don't know how. It's so scary
Yep.
that I don't know how to approach it.
Okay. So the again, the same technique, and that is you think about it, and then you immediately look for a feeling about it, and then you start to approach the sensation component of the feeling while watching the stories go by, the books with the titles. Watch them go by. But that's the technique that you might use when you're ready to do it. And you might find that it's really associated to the very first thing that we talked about, that they're not separate. But maybe not, but there's a good chance that it'll lead you to the same place. Who knows? Yeah. Great adventure. Wonderful adventure. Yes.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks for patience to everybody.
Yeah.
I had to think of my mom because some months ago I had a conversation with her and I brought up this traumatic experience that I had with my two best friends and my classmates. And then my mom's reaction was not at the same day, not in the same conversation, but some days later, she felt she had a bad conscience about not having protected me. And then I was so disturbed by that because um, I thought, like, how can you think, how can you ever think that you were responsible for that? I mean, that happened outside the family. And I mean, can you really be so egocentric that you think that you can control everything, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
I have to jump on that. It really be so egocentric. Of course, everybody's egocentric, so that's not the
mm,
issue. Yeah, and again, it's not rational. These things are not
yeah,
rational. They operate at a different level. So yeah, of course. So maybe it wasn't just that incident that she felt guilty about not protecting you from. Maybe it was
mm,
a whole lot of things. Who knows?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then also I felt kind of triggered because maybe I was wishing for just having a space to share this story, but not that somebody thinks he has to fix it or he is
Yeah.
responsible for it. Like, I didn't even think about that. Yeah. But for example, my mom, she she told me once literally that she had an issue with not being enough because she was like the only child, and her parents like put all their expectation into onto her, and she was never enough, and they had expectations, but she could never be who she wanted. So basically, what she was doing was to lie to her parents.
Mm.
So, and then afterwards, feeling bad about that as well. And within our family, like when my grandparents were still alive, they lived on the other side of the street, and for example, when there was some conflict between me or my sister and my father or my grandparents, then she would always feel responsible for that. And yeah, well, I think mm, it's quite common, but
Yeah, yeah. I suspect that is way more common than we accept because we avoid this kind of stuff. So we often don't recognize that we felt not enough. Yeah. Well, I also felt it. I could never please my father, no matter what I did, no matter how hard I tried. Just wasn't going to happen. I was never enough.
but I have to say it had like a good outcome because my mom never gave me the feeling that I have to meet her expectations. She always,
She
yeah,
accepted what you were, where you were, how you
yeah,
were. Yeah. Mm. Yeah, I think it's one of those really ingrained conditionings that we have in all Western society, probably in all societies. I don't know. I don't know about indigenous societies, but that as parents, we're responsible for our kids. And yet our kids try everything they can to to avoid that, to be different.
yeah. Didn't choose the right word. Egocentric sounds like super negative. Um, but
Arrogant, maybe?
no, not arrogant, but it was really like, um, it was kind of out of place. I mean, because I mean, if I imagine she had intervened, it would have been even worse,
Mm.
I mean,
Well,
imagine that you are bullied by your classmates, and then your mom comes and tells them,
yeah, you'll
"Hey,
get bullied even
not
more after that. Yeah. Yeah.
so."
Yeah, no, I understood what you meant, but see, I had a realization when I was, I don't know, very young. Maybe I was an adolescent, maybe it was even earlier. I don't remember how old I was, but I remember clearly thinking that there is no such thing as altruism, that that even altruists do what they do so that they feel good. And it's always about me, no matter what. Everything is always about me. And that's everybody. There are no exceptions. So even the most altruistic, so that was a very simplistic realization back when I was 10 years old or something. But even altruists are doing it so that they feel good in themselves. So that there can't actually be any such thing as altruism. So everybody is always trying to just feel better. So there's no judgment about that. It's just the way it is. That's the nature of being human. We move towards feeling good and away from feeling bad. Or at least that's the theory. Frequently, that moving away from feeling bad is what makes us feel bad. But who knows? Yeah. But yeah, everybody wants to. I think bad things happen because people feel they're unable to do good things. I don't believe there's any such thing as inherent evil. There is just fucked up people.
But I find the situation really difficult. I mean, someone travels very far, and then the person who was supposed to be together with this visitor has disappeared, and of course you feel kind of,
Yeah,
yeah,
sure.
that you
Yeah.
have to step
It,
in and then you can't, and
if you
I
imagine
think
that
this
that
is really
is,
difficult.
yes, but if you imagine that your understanding of that is taking into account all of the details, then you're misguided yourself. We can't know what's going on for them completely. Yeah? I had an incident today here where a friend of mine who 20 years ago was in trouble. And because of the internet being the internet, and this was published in a newspaper, the trouble that he was in, it still exists on the internet. And somebody here where he lives, and that was back in Sydney 20 years ago when that happened. And here in this tiny little village of Lemon Tree Passage, somebody found that on the internet and they started to judge him and react to that, what they found. And it's without doubt a tricky situation because it was terrible for him to have this thrown up at him again when it was all done and finished 20 years ago. So it affected him emotionally, what had happened. And of course, he's just immediately responding by saying that the people who brought this up and are talking about it, they're just bad people. That's not the words he used, but that's the essence of it. And I'm saying, I wonder why they did that. I wonder what went on behind that. What is going on in those people's lives for them to do that? And I don't know, and I can't know. I don't know the people, and I can't know their circumstances, and I can't know. I don't know why good people do bad things, or I don't know why people do bad things. Right? And it's always because there's things going on that I don't know about. So it's not really appropriate for me to judge them as bad people because they've done it. What I get is a curiosity about, oh, I wonder what's behind it. Why would they do that? So people who gossip, they gossip. That's a defense mechanism of theirs. They gossip because they don't feel good in themselves. So people who want to bring up bad stuff about other people are doing it because they feel bad about themselves. I'm not forgiving them for doing it. I'm not saying it's not my job to forgive or accept. But the fact is it happened, so there is acceptance of that. But there's also curiosity about why they would do that. What are the circumstances that they have, that they're carrying around in them? What's their toxic starting point? Right? And this is an attempt from them to feel better about themselves. So that's pretty general, but I imagine that is the case. So we can't know. We can't know why Sylvia's son ran away when that. See, maybe there's some history between them, her son, and the friend from Italy. Maybe there's some history that we don't know about that he didn't want to face. Who knows? We don't know. We've got no idea what the details might be. But we do know about Sylvia's reaction, and that's what we can deal with. That's all. Tricky stuff, isn't it? I don't know me, let alone anybody else. How can I possibly know anybody else if I don't know what goes on inside me? And I'm constantly surprised about what comes up in me. So I can't, I'm not in a position to judge anybody else.
I have a little question about intensity. I seem to need to get to a point of such an intensity that it's almost unbearable, to learn. Do you have the same, or are you able to learn from emotions that are just shallow, maybe, or not so strong, not so. I seem to be able to learn only when it gets to that point. Not that I like it or anything, but
Yeah, yeah,
this is the way it is.
Mm.
How is it for you? I'm curious to know.
Both, but yeah. So I certainly learn from things that don't reach an incredible intensity, but I do experience that intensity stuff. Now, when I say that intensity, if I get angry, for example, they'll talk about the intensity of my anger. Then there's a learning opportunity as well there. But slightly different might be back when I was a seeker. There was an incredible intensity as a seeker. There was an obsession that was unquenchable for me to find out, to chase this thing called enlightenment. I just think it's crazy now, but it was there. It was, it was big. It caused me to make life decisions as well. It was huge. So I can relate to what you talk about with that intensity. Redirecting it from a future-oriented thing, which is what learning is about, to a present-oriented thing about what is here, might be much more profitable. So we can't stop the intensity, but we can redirect it. It's just an untamable energy. I don't know. What about you, Ramiz? What's your experience with intensity of finding out or learning or
Nothing but intensity.
There you go. Yeah.
Isn't it
I woke
tiring
up.
sometimes?
Yeah, it is. I woke up today feeling nausea. I had a dream of smoking cigarette. I don't smoke, but in the dream I smoked and I woke up very nauseated, and I did yoga nidra and I slept again, and I woke up again and I still having the same feeling. I feel like I want to throw up. And I feel a lot of pressure in the throat, like very sick, thick, something around my throat.
Yeah. The immediate thought that turned up here was that a smoke screen has the intent of obscuring. It's just what thoughts turned up. I have no idea whether it's relevant or not.
Well, what turned up for me but yesterday I smoked a lot, and it was in a closed room. And when I spoke, I don't notice it, but at night I felt the effects, and I was so dizzy, and now I almost feel like, oh my God, I must have passed it telepathically. I don't know. Ram is so empathetic that he can feel my dizziness. This is this egocentric stuff.
Mhm. So would you playing with organ language, and so the smoke screen thing, would you go as far as to say you produced a brain fog?
No, I don't think so. It feels like I can hardly breathe. Like even if I breathe slowly and deeply, it doesn't feel like I'm breathing correctly somehow. It's just like dizziness, and it's like a lot of pressure coming up. It feels like blocked here, and it's like I'm almost feeling around my throat and neck area. And there's a little bit of sadness. And a lot of exhaustion, like I'm very exhausted.
Mm. But when you said around the throat and neck area, I immediately thought of stopping expression.
I'm not sure, like I feel like I have felt all the emotions that I can possibly feel. I expressed a lot of things. It's like I have no idea what could be hiding anymore. Like I can't even imagine.
Mm. Do you imagine that there is something still hidden?
Maybe it's not like something is hidden, but it's not completely expressed or felt.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's a lot of thoughts of like suicidal thoughts. I'm not taking them seriously, but they come very randomly.
Mm-hmm.
And when I catch the thought, I keep repeating it to myself and feel how it feels.
Mm-hmm. Does it feel like those thoughts are about finishing something?
It's finishing something as ending it or completing it.
Well, put it another way, that to relate to that question would be, yes, and ending it completely. I can't take it anymore, and this is a way to stop it. Now, I know we're not talking about it in the literal sense, so using it as a metaphor.
It's more like the overall feeling is like there is nothing to do, nowhere to go,
So is that
and
acceptance, resignation, or something else?
I can't say. I'm not sure.
So I'm just chasing the feeling around nothing to do and nowhere to go. Is that a good thing or a not good thing?
I don't have opinion about it, but
Is there a
it
feeling?
feels.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe devastating.
So then would you say nothing to do and nowhere to go feels like a trap? Are you trapped and helpless? Is that what you're referring to?
Maybe, but more like a feeling of a loss.
Say that one again.
Loss.
Lost. Yeah. Or
No,
lost,
like
L-O-S-S, loss.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. So with that, is there grief or sadness, one or the other or both?
There is endless grief.
Endless grief. Whoa. Okay. So suicide might be the only way to stop endless grief. Do they seem related to you?
I don't feel like I mind the grief as much.
So not minding it would suggest that there's an acceptance of it. How is that related to the endlessness of it?
I don't know, it just seems like it keeps coming back and again.
Oh, okay. Okay. So it's endless doesn't mean that it's always present. It just means that it keeps coming back. And you can't ever imagine it not coming back. So what has been lost? What are you grieving? First thing that comes to mind is best to look at.
Everything really. Mostly people. Attachment.
When you say people, family or others? First thing that comes to mind.
Both.
Don't think about it. Sorry, both. Yeah. I kind of thought you'd say that. Yeah. And when you say people, how are they lost? First thing, have they died? Have they moved on? What or something else?
It's an inward loss. It's not what's happening. It's like I'm losing um, something inside me, not the actual people.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting, isn't it? If I said something inside you would be your idea of other people, that sounds to me a bit hollow. That wouldn't be quite right, would it? It's something more inside you. Is it connection?
Sometimes it feels too much in the body. Just my mind wants to completely like shut down.
Yep.
It's almost like I can't even think or
Yeah. That's a great avoidance, that one, isn't it? Nothing can be argued against that one. It's just overwhelm.
it feels like freeze.
Can you recognize, does that come from before a little while back or before a long way back or now?
I can understand.
Have you been carrying this one around with you for months or years or decades or your whole life?
I think it's from ever.
Forever being your whole life. Or does it even extend outside of your life? Is it?
No, I don't know what's outside my life.
Yeah, okay. It's not the world, it's you. It's personal.
It also colors my perception of the world.
Yep, yep. I keep thinking how this points me to Bianca again. So Bianca, I really love your input here on this one, because things you've said sound quite similar in a way. Yeah.
In what way?
Well, what Ramesh just said about this feeling colours his perception of the world. His perception, maybe that's not the right word, but colours the way he feels about the world. And that it's been around forever. And you have a strong feeling about the world that's quite, I mean, you've said things like, I should never have been born. And now Ramesh is expressing the same thing, but from a different angle about it's just overwhelming. It's just too much. It's just, yeah. So help me get a clearer picture of what Ramesh is saying. That's what I'm asking. If you can, if you're inclined to, you don't have to, of course.
I would say that I also feel similar. Wishing not to be born. I would even go further that I wish life itself is not a thing.
Yeah, that's exactly what
Yes,
I'm saying. Yeah.
that's what is my deep belief.
It makes me just want to cry with sadness. And I don't want to make this about me, but it makes me my sadness is about is that there must be so much pain to feel this way.
The other day, yesterday or before, I was sitting with my grandma and she was going on about wanting to leave again. And at this time, I was in a good mood somehow. I didn't want to argue with her, and she kept saying what she gonna do. She was gonna leave, or she gonna put her bed in the apartment. Like she's planning all the things in her mind, like she's moving out. And it's like in completely like delusional way. And I was listening to her, and she's like on the verge of crying, and my mom was feeling the same. And she's like saying to her, okay, we will get you there, we will make you go home. and they were actually considering bringing her home. And I was saying, absolutely not, that will never happen. But I wasn't telling that to my grandma. And then I felt like this huge urge to just hug my grandma. At first, I was feeling completely like I would feel angry at her. But there was a feeling of lightness, like I wasn't taking her as seriously, and I was feeling her. And I just, for the first time, I just sat beside her and I asked her, can you give me a hug? And she was like completely like shocked. What? Why? Like, she wasn't hearing me correctly, and she was confused why I'm close to her. And then I hugged her, and she burst in crying. And I told her, why are you not kind to yourself? And then she said, I wish I die. I don't want anyone to care about me anymore. Uh, and I'm not sure if this is related, but then she changed her mind and she decided to stay, not to move out. And
How do you think the hug was involved in her change of mind that she decided to stay? I mean, obviously we
I'm
can
not sure.
imagine it. We don't actually know, but the hug caused her. Well, the hug allowed her. The hug was involved in her bursting into tears. Which was an expression of something. What do you imagine it was an expression of? The tears. Did she relax and lean into the hug? Or was she contracted and wanting to get out of it? Or something else?
Yeah, she did contract about it and start speaking about herself and expressing her desire to die.
Mm. So you can that word egocentricity comes up again. So you could see how he wasn't even considering the effect that her dying might have on anybody else. She was just really wanting to end the pain that she was in. And that was partly to do with having other people be responsible for her or helping her or putting other people out. And so it's a bit of a contrary kind of thing, a contradiction, a bit of a paradox there. She doesn't want to put anybody else out, but she not even thinking about the pain that they would experience if she died. But of course, if she did think about the pain that others might experience when she died, she wouldn't even think about wanting to die. But because she's in pain, she's in some kind of an emotional pain. And somehow your hug allowed her to express that pain. And then the attempt to get rid of it by going home, or not having other people be responsible for her, seemed to dissipate as a result of that. Well, of course, this is all story. We're only imagining it to be the case, but
Yeah, I want to ask something different about you, not about grandma, because I maybe I am imagining things, but you said before that you are grieving loss, the loss of attachment. Loss of relationship like it was before.
No, not a specific memory.
Mm-hmm.
could you be grieving ahead of time about the future loss of your grandma?
I think it's something different.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like grieving the future as well. I can't understand how she could be the kindest person, but it's almost like she never experienced any kindness in her life.
So it's not just your loss, it's other people's loss that you're experiencing. And loss is not quite right, is it? Because it's not just something gained and then gone missing, but something that was never there. That kind of loss too. Not something you had and no longer have, but maybe something never had. That's a question, actually.
Yeah, that feels more accurate.
Have you had the kind of connection that we're talking about with anybody ever? Have you experienced what it is this loss is about?
Don't think.
Is it like losing a story?
It doesn't feel like a story. It's like it's more like an image.
Well, a story may be in a form of an image.
Maybe, but it's not definable. It's
Yeah. So when you said image, I immediately thought, oh, there's got to be some feeling component in it as well. So yeah. But let me ask you this. I imagine that it feels very real. That connection that is missing. Does it feel like you know it? How can I put it? You know it, even if you've never experienced it, you still know it. Would that be accurate?
I don't know. It's like a feeling. It's like music. It just I can't describe it. I can't give it a name.
Mm.
It's as real or unreal as much as the sensation in the throat.
Mm. But would you say, I can accept all of that. Would you say though that it also, that you can recognize something actual about it? It's not just an idea, it's not just a story, it's something much more than that, right? So even though you can't describe it, you couldn't, whatever, but you could recognize it if it turned up, couldn't you?
I kind of lost you.
Say that again.
I can't follow what you're saying. Like,
Okay. Yeah. I guess what I'm saying is, so it goes along the lines, what I was hunting for goes along the lines that for you to have such deep, profound feelings about this, it's not just about an idea. It's about something that transcends that level of experience. It is about something that, right, and I'm imagining that it's something that you know of, even though that's not logical. That even though all of the, that I don't know how to, well, if I was into woo-woo stuff, I would say, well, you knew it from a past life. But what I'm saying is that it appears to be really tangible, this that you have lost, and in brackets that you also have never experienced. I mean, I know we're not talking logic here. We're not talking at all logical. I'm asking you about your feelings, about your relationship to this. What you have lost is tangible, so tangible that it almost feels like the grief will never stop until I die. You don't have to keep chasing it. You could say, well, we've poked the bear enough that if something reveals itself, it will. Otherwise, it won't. Who knows? Is it? And I say we don't have to keep going, and yet I want to keep going. Is it something that you see in other people?
yeah,
Right.
And it feels odd when they can't recognize it, or it's like they're willingly denying it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it makes no sense that they have such a beautiful gift and don't see it. Is that accurate?
No, I think it's painful
That they don't recognize it.
to recognize it. It's painful.
Ah. Right. So are you saying then that the connection itself that is missing is painful?
I feel like it must be. If it's not painful, we wouldn't avoid it.
But the thought that came back for me, it sounds banal, but love is painful. Uh, I remember I watched Six Continents, with you, Vince. Um, when you were talking about this love, but it's so overwhelming. That, that you cried.
Yeah, I don't remember that. But I rather imagine they weren't tears of pain, they're tears of beauty, which I guess can be painful in a funny kind of way.
I don't remember it well. I just have
Mm.
impression in my mind, but that it was so overwhelming that it was painful.
I'll have to go and watch it now. Mm. Did this bring up anything for you, Leonard?
I just made myself some mate, so I didn't follow everything. I'm a bit lost now.
So how have you been in general?
Quite fine. Um, I don't really want to name it, but I guess I can feel like a very, very, very slow shift into being more calm because I think last time I told you that, for example, about those exercises, like inquiring, or for example, yeah, inquiring into the senses and so on. Those exercises, I used to read them, and then it was always like my mind would say, "Ah, okay, got it," and so I kind of never really had the calm to take the time to really experience it. And yesterday was the first time that I really felt ready for doing that and really curious to do that as well. So I don't know. It's like a slight shift that I can notice.
Mm. Sounds good.
Yeah, and then also, for example, I remember maybe 1 year ago or so, it would really stress me a lot if people were angry with me. And on Sunday, I guess I listened to music a bit too loud during several hours, but I always thought that it's not, I mean, it's under the rooftop. So I always thought that it's not heard by my neighbors. And then after those maybe 3 hours of listening to operas, which is not like something everybody likes either, or maybe could be annoying, I don't know. I practiced the cello, and then my neighbor rang the doorbell, and she was, I mean, I saw her like once, and I'm living here for a bit more than a year now. So I was suddenly confronted with this human being which was like super angry, and I was quite calm and friendly. I could feel that it stressed me a bit physically, but I was still like very kind and saying like, ah, I'm sorry, I didn't know that it was that you could
Mm.
hear it. And then yeah, she did some commentaries which were not very diplomatic,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
okay,
You're
for
lucky,
example,
man. Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
because then I just asked her like, could you maybe tell me what are your working hours so I can adjust my practice to maybe when you're not at home? And then she was like, kind of, I don't have to be okay with you practicing or something like that. So I could really feel that maybe she had been annoyed for a
Yeah.
while,
It's a
but she
build
didn't
up.
say
Yeah.
anything. And then she exploded, and there was no diplomatic
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, conversation possible. And yeah, okay, but it was kind of interesting because like maybe 1 year before it would have stressed me
Yeah.
really, and maybe I would have, I don't know,
Who knows?
either
Yeah. Yeah.
said something mean as well, or I don't know, like,
Yeah. Well, you're just so lucky to have such an opportunity, isn't it? Great that
or
that happened.
also I would have started, I mean, I can't, I to be honest, it's not that those thoughts don't come to me, but I
Yeah.
don't pay
You don't
a
have
lot
to
of
act on
attention
them.
to
Yeah.
them because like this catastrophizing, like, oh, I don't feel comfortable in this place anymore. I have to move somewhere else. Everybody hates
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. It's not a big
because
thing
I
like
think
that. Yeah.
also she said like, yeah, all the other neighbors complained as well. And actually, I don't think it's true, but maybe that's something you say to give it a bit more weight, but who knows? I
No,
don't know.
that's right. Who knows? Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, those thoughts come like, oh, I can never practice the cello again or something. And
Yeah.
then,
Yeah. Of course, there's all sorts
yeah,
of things go through.
but I could like observe these kind of stories. And then I thought like, okay, just give it a break. And I think today I will practice again. But I also searched for a spot in my apartment, which is like to play it into a corner.
You're
So
playing in
it's
the
not,
cupboard now.
no,
Yeah, I get that.
no.
Yeah.
Um, I just found a place where maybe the sound waves don't travel too
Sure.
much into
Yeah.
the other apartment. So then I also bought some stuff that is like it's made of rubber and you can put it to the chords. So it makes the sound a bit
It's
more.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So did you at any time did you appreciate how wonderful and great it is that you had this opportunity to investigate stuff that you
Yeah.
recognize that it wasn't there, that it used to be there and that kind of stuff? Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah,
That's
and
great. Yeah.
maybe there was even some thoughts that were like, "Pff, I don't care for this neighbor or something,
Oh yeah.
like
All of these things
egoist.
go around, but then you
And then,
come into perspective, don't you?
yeah, but then it was like really clear, okay, those things happen when you live in human society and
Of
it's
course.
nothing
Of course.
so
Yeah.
special. And maybe, I don't know, maybe I could uh, go and ring her bell again after she has calmed down and like talk to her again and ask her what are her working hours.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
and find
Or even
a
just ask her, have the steps that I've taken been successful?
Mm,
I play in a
yeah.
corner now, and I put in this stuff in
Mm.
to mute the sound. And is it still annoying, or is it okay now?
And
Once
anyway, I
you
think
calm down, she'll be a completely different person,
it
probably.
was rather about the music, I guess, and maybe also I always practice around 7 o'clock, maybe that's not the best time because people come back from work and then
Sure,
they
yeah.
want to relax. So maybe I would just choose a different hour of the day. But yeah,
Have you got a good set of Bluetooth headphones?
yeah, I have. Yeah,
Where you could listen to the music as loud as you
yeah,
like. It wouldn't affect anybody then.
no.
Mm. Yeah.
But
You can also bring her chocolates.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, or maybe invite her to a dance with noisy music after work.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, also maybe those thoughts come, I after having spent 5 years in South America, I got maybe a bit racist towards Germans, like not racist, but a bit, oh yeah, these Germans always complain and no. And so yeah. Um yeah, but this story I could observe it, but it was not too long. It was just like half an hour maybe after what had happened, and then
Yeah.
it was kind of gone.
Yep. Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of a trivial thing
Oh,
that happened.
it's trivial, but it's also revealing, isn't it? You know, that's a good thing about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what I noticed is, and I think that's something that Pernille also mentioned in one of her videos, because I remember that she gave this mantra. Uh, what was it like? I love myself, I'm safe, or something like that. It was like mm, somehow I'm allowed to take space in the world. And that's something that I, for many years of my life, didn't have. I always felt like I have to be kind of invisible in order to not disturb anybody.
Mm.
Things like, for example, I am on an aeroplane and I have to go to the toilet, but I sit on the window aisle and I don't want to wake up the people, so I some kind of suppress my need. I mean, just to give a stupid
Yeah.
example, but
I get what you mean. Yeah. Yeah.
that you don't yet that you avoid asking people for something very
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
simple just because you feel like, oh no, I
Yes.
shouldn't take that space, or I shouldn't wake people up,
Yeah.
or I
Yeah.
should, yeah. And it's a bit similar to that because my practicing cello and doing noise is kind of also related to this subject. So,
Yeah. 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 Yeah, that's an interesting one that Penilla came up with too, with boundaries, you know, and
mm,
one of the things that shocked me was that if I don't have strong boundaries, I also don't respect other people's boundaries.
mm,
Now, that was an interesting turnaround that I hadn't realized until she said it. Yeah. Because I don't feel like I've got boundaries, and I wondered whether or not I do impinge on other people's boundaries a bit too much.
mm.
Yeah. That's
But I understand
incredible.
my neighbor as well because, yeah, uh, during the pandemic in my flat in Buenos Aires, I had my dormitory, or like the room where I slept, next to, I think it was also where my neighbor was sleeping, and she used to sleep with the television on. And then like Argentine television can be really like blah 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 blah. And yeah, it was like all night long. And but also it wasn't really my best time there. I mean the pandemic affected me very much psychologically somehow. And I remember like getting so furious. Um, and now, for example, like already a month or so, there are construction works in my street.
Ah,
And
yeah.
it could be really annoying, but I really don't care.
Mm,
And it's really interesting because it does have to do with your inner, I don't know, the way you feel towards everything, I guess.
mhm.
Because um, I recently noticed like, okay, that it's like really noisy, but I don't feel annoyed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, everybody has like different periods in his life.
yeah,
Sometimes you can be easily annoyed by something, and at other times you don't really care.
yeah,
So
yeah. And same like with getting triggered, if you're tired or sick, then your
mm,
tolerance level goes down.
yeah, or if you have a stressful job and now it's a Sunday and you want to
Yeah,
enjoy the calm, and then your neighbor listens to like operas all the time.
that's
It
right.
can be, I
Yeah.
can understand that it can be annoying.
Mm.
I also think it's a stupid thing that she was listening to your cello and opera for years. Year? I don't know how long. But there is this. Uh, it disturbs me, but I shouldn't. I shouldn't make any comments. I shouldn't, and it's suppressing this anger, suppressing until it gets so furious that she went to you, with no space for talk.
Uh,
If
yeah,
she would come half a year earlier.
mhm. Yeah, I remember now that I asked her, but why didn't you tell me earlier? And then she said something like, just now I'm having the guts to tell you, or something like this. So
Yeah,
yeah, it was obvious that she just didn't dare to come
yeah,
over and
built up. Yeah.
tell me. So that made things like also more understandable for me somehow.
There's
Ah,
another one that I've remembered from years ago. Called the wheelbarrow joke. That's what I called it anyway. And it's about these two neighbours in the suburbs, and they both mowed their lawns. And one bloke, he doesn't have a wheelbarrow, and he has to take his lawn clippings down the back in a bucket. And he does 20 trips taking his wheel, and he sees that his neighbour finished all his a long time ago, and the wheelbarrow is just sitting there in his front lawn, and he's not doing anything with it. So he thinks, I'll go and ask him if I can borrow his wheelbarrow. And then he thinks, but he won't let me. So he does another couple of trips, and it builds up. He says 3 or 4 times. He says, I'll go and ask him if I can borrow his wheelbarrow, and then he never. And then eventually he does. He hops over the fence and he knocks on the front door and he says, "You can stick your fucking wheelbarrow right up your ass." So he never got to ask him, but yeah, it built up and built up and built up till he snapped. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm,
but that
yeah.
also showed me that um, it's important to be in touch with your own needs and also
Yeah.
tell them to other people, because otherwise,
Don't let it up. That's right. Yeah.
at some point, you just are not able to say this in a friendly way anymore. And then, yeah, the interaction becomes a bit aggressive.
I really liked the text that you sent, Vince, with the email
Oh,
about
yeah.
that this whole awakening thing is about growing up and being an adult. And yeah,
Yeah, I want to get it away from that spirituality bullshit. It's all about being human, really, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, but this is so true. I also I feel like this all these things I should do something. I should be like this. You know, it's in a way it's avoiding responsibility. Maybe it's a paradox, but it's a bit like, you know, I was just following orders.
Mm. Mm.
I should do this, I should do that, instead of thinking what I really want to do and taking responsibility for what I want.
Mm. Yeah, very much so. But it's amazing how many people probably don't know what they want. And maybe they know what they don't want a lot more than they know what they do want. I don't know.
And it's also how I said it. I believe there are some adults in the world, but they are very, very rare.
Somewhat in the world? I missed the word, what you said.
That there are adults,
Oh, adults, yes, yes, for sure. Oh,
real adults.
you don't come across many, do you?
That
Yeah.
they are very rare, and that is why I don't blame myself for not being a real adult, because how could I learn it when I had no model?
Yes. Yeah. Well, we have the opposite, really. We have adults who claim to be adults, but it's really obvious to anybody with a little bit of insight that they're just children. They're immature.
This, they don't even know how to pretend to be an adult.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Especially when you see those children in positions of power, politicians running the country kind of thing and making decisions based on popularity and other ridiculous things that don't lead to good stuff. Yeah. But we live in a world
But
like
I was wondering, but still, I have this idea of what a real adult is, and how did I get this idea?
well, good question, especially if you had no models to show you.
Maybe it's, you know, literature or
Could be. Well, I'd say in a big way it is, certainly. And once you get into this path, it becomes a little bit more obvious as well.
I think about 12 angry men.
Mm.
You know, how in the last scene, this old man and this main hero shake hands and introduce themselves, and it's like they recognize each other as real men, adults. I was very impressed by this movie.
Mm. I wonder if we recognize it even without models, because it is a fundamental nature, you know. So even as an adolescent that gets stuck there, somewhere younger than that even, there is the recognition that there is another way besides the childish way. I've told the story many times that when I felt so constricted in things in my life, and I imagined that when I got to be 18, I would have some freedom. And then when that didn't happen, I imagined, oh, it must happen at 21 when I get to be an official adult. And when I got to 21, I recognized that there were no adults. They were all just kids. And this is me at 21 years old going, no, there's no adults in the world. Now, I mean, I was overstating it, of course, to say there were no adults, but I certainly didn't know any. Yeah. Those that were pretending to be adults were just playing a childish game. Cynical, isn't it? Yeah.
Something else happened, and I I talked on the phone to an old friend that I had lost contact with. And I mean, I think my escape to South America had to do with the rather toxic environment, and that I had been in Berlin. Like all of my friends were taking a lot of drugs, and some of my friends ended up in a psychiatry with a psychosis because they took too many drugs, and or being like reaching a stage of alcoholism that was really extreme, or other friends like would just always sit in their apartment smoking joints and always talking about their plans, fantastic plans, but like it was always the same talk, you know, and there would not happen anything. And then also a lot of friends of mine were in rather toxic relationships. And I felt like, okay, if I stay here, I won't be able to change my life. Maybe that's not true, but it was an opportunity, like to go to a new place and like reset everything. And I think it really worked as well. I mean, it didn't resolve all my problems, of course, because that was the illusion. Like I can go to a different country and leave a suitcase full of problems in Berlin. Those problems came back afterwards, but yeah, I mean, I quit drinking, I quit taking drugs, I quit smoking, and those things. And uh, yeah, but I see that in order to have a distance to this old context, I kind of started to be very rigid and like judge those people. and also judging myself. But maybe in a way it was kind of necessary at that moment, like to take a distance. But for example, when I came back to Germany, this friend contacted me and we were really kind of best friends. But I always said it was the older brother I never wanted, because it was really like quite, I mean, we did really wild things together and it was like a bit disastrous, everything, but it was also a lot of fun and back then. But yeah, when at the point, at the time when I left Berlin, this friend was really consumed by fantasies about revenge, because another friend did something to him, which was like, yeah, and I found this like really awful to be with someone who is has this fantasies of revenge, and then also combined with a lot of consume of drugs and so on. Okay, but years passed by. I mean, I would still say that from my perspective, it's a person who has a problem with alcohol, but that's not my issue. But it was just like he started to contact me again. And then I also told him that I quit drinking and that it was quite in an intense time and so on. And then, yeah, he sent me a video of him like talking to me in a pub, super drunk, smoking and drinking. And at that moment, that was like very triggering for me. So I didn't answer anymore. And I think there was a good portion of judgment as well.
Right.
But
Triggered
then some,
into a bad place.
yeah, and then now I feel less rigid with myself and other people, and I know that it's not something you do, it's something that happens, and there has to be the right moment to yeah, not, I wouldn't even say quit, so these things can come to an end. And then I talked to him on the phone and I was very honest. I said, like, I'm sorry, but I think back then it triggered me too much, so I didn't text you again. And then he told me that he didn't write to me because he thought that would find him boring,
Ah,
because he's still in the same kind of context. And
mm,
then I said, yeah, but usually that's my thing, that I think people from back then would find me boring because I don't drink anymore, I don't take drugs anymore, I'm not that party animal anymore. So I yeah, my hobbies maybe for other people are a bit boring, like practicing the cello, learning languages, reading philosophy or something like that, you know.
mm.
So and then the good thing was that he opened up totally, and that was not something common, which what he would have done back then. It was rather like having a very funny um, facade of something who is always very ironic and sarcastic. I mean, I also enjoyed that a lot, but he was always kind of this clown, an eloquent clown who would always draw everything into something ridiculous. And then he opened up completely and he told me like about the toxic mechanisms in his family, and that he kind of plays a role inside this mechanism, and he's not able to exit it. So, and he knows that he's also drinking too much and so on. And I really thought, wow. And then I also told him, yeah, because he was kind of telling me, yeah, and I just, I know I would have to change it, but I can't. And then I also said to him, don't blame yourself. And I think it's already good that you are seeing those things. I mean, a bit like maybe inspired of what we are doing here. But yeah, it was like very nice. I mean, we talked for many hours, and it was basically him talking about his life, and I was listening to him, and then yeah, I think that now I really think it's nice that we can connect again, and that I mean, I can't help him, but I think I know that I'm the only person to whom he would tell those things, because all the other people around him buy into his clown show,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
sure, yeah, yeah. You know, we can't help anybody that doesn't want to be helped. But if he does want help, you may be able to offer something. Just
Mm,
yeah. But always keep in touch with yourself when that's happening. Was my advice.
mm,
Yeah,
yeah,
just
but I
you being authentic is always going to be
mm,
an opening for other people.
mm, yeah, and it's just interesting because I noticed yeah, it's like I'm aware of the fact that people have no choice, you know, and so of course, I told him, I mean, I don't have a problem to go to a pub with you. I mean, I will have a Coke or something. I can tell you honestly that I wouldn't enjoy to speak with someone who's like super drunk,
Mm,
but
mm.
um, do what you have to do. I don't know, you know,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it doesn't trigger me that much anymore. It doesn't,
Because you're past that.
yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, we do. You know, I mean, it sounds arrogant, but I'm not meaning it in that way. But we do have an effect on those around us, as they do
Mm,
us as well. So yeah, if we're centered and in the present, that can have a good or a bad effect on people. It can be, some people can be
mm,
threatened by it. Others are inspired. You just don't know. You know. Yeah.
mm. Yeah, and I noticed that it's interesting because I don't drink anymore. It doesn't belong to my life. I
Mm.
don't actually think about it anymore. Um, but I don't identify as someone who doesn't drink.
Yeah. Yes. You haven't adopted an alternative identity.
Uh,
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. Great. Yeah.
Not anymore, because this identification was there for quite a long time. Like,
Yes. Maybe it's even useful in the transition from a drinker to a non-drinker, because you're not really a non-drinker now. Now that you're just somebody who doesn't drink, or yeah, it sounds like the same thing, but it's not.
yeah, it's interesting because um, people who don't drink anymore um, are anyway called alcoholics, but no one would put the same label on someone who doesn't smoke joints anymore, for example.
Oh, okay. Yeah. There's still a what I call them, a stoner. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, it's well, I was going to say it's wrong, but it's not. It's right and wrong. So the reason that people who no longer drink, who were alcoholics, still identify as an alcoholic, is
Mm,
a strategy to keep them away from drinking. You know, because they say, well, if I
mm.
start drinking, I'm likely to fall back into that. You know, which
Yeah, when you go to
yeah. So the opposite of, if you know, that's a stupid thing to say too, but the opposite of a drinker isn't a non-drinker. It's somebody
mm,
it's no longer an issue for.
mm.
And so an alcoholic who hasn't been drinking for a certain period of time, if they've evolved in their loosening of identification, identify as a non-drinking alcoholic anymore. It just would cease to be an issue.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's different for everybody because I went a few times in Buenos Aires to AA, to a group, and I think it was a good experience just because I think before I went there, I had some prejudice and I had also a bit of a classicist arrogance. Yeah, arrogant. I mean, yeah, maybe I wouldn't have, not openly, but like deep down,
Yeah.
like
They're
for
different from
example,
me. Yeah.
yeah, and there were like guys, for example, from I mean, I think the gap between the classes in South America is a bit bigger or like a bit wide.
Yeah.
So, and the good thing about this experience was that I saw that no matter how educated or from which financial background, like, everybody is the same.
Mm.
But I think what didn't really resonated with me was like, okay, I can say, hello, I'm Leonard, I'm an alcoholic in recovery, but like on the long run for me, like this identification somehow is not necessary, like it's not
Mm.
me. I
Yeah.
see that it could
You're
be
safe
helpful
without
for
it.
other
Yeah.
people, but yeah, I don't really see why I should identify with that.
Well, of course, the ideal is to lose all identification.
Mm.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Louise?
Morning. I've been listening, getting my son off to school, but in and out. It's really funny, Leonard, you talk about this. I found myself going less and less to AA. I thought it was because, anyway, there was some arrogance there. I actually went to an AA meeting and I was faced with my inner arrogance. I was listening to people and I could hear inside, like the insights that I'd had about stuff. I was judging other people. And it was quite an amazing experience. So it was like being a beginner again, almost, like just acceptance. Like there's just everyone is coming from where they're coming from. But I relate to what you're saying about the identification with being an alcoholic doesn't make any sense. So it's almost like just going along and playing the game. Like when I'm not in an AA room or I'm not speaking to an alcoholic, I'm not an alcoholic. It's just not. I'm not any of those things.
It's just a non-issue.
It's a non-issue. Yeah. I also wanted to. It's gone. Bear with me. No, it's gone.
Don't chase it. With the moment you stop chasing it, it'll come back to you.
Yeah. It's been good. It's been good this week. Ups, downs. Just a lot less getting caught. And if I do, it's okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think self-pity has been a thing for me this week. Like just seeing that inside, like I can be really like peaceful and okay. And it seems to be when I open my mouth to family members or people I know, it seems to have some self-pity stuff come on. And I'm sometimes a little surprised that it comes out. Because actually inside I'm actually feeling okay. It's almost like again playing a role or playing a game.
We do a lot of that and before, but now we kind of see it happening a bit more, and that that makes it interesting.
Yeah. Also related to what Remi's was saying, like stuff that was coming up. I remember as a child trying to speak about or trying to communicate to somebody how I was feeling, and it's funny as he was talking, I could hear the voices saying we don't talk about those things, or it's just like we just don't go there.
Yeah.
And he was talking about his grandmother, and I was thinking, just having somebody there that you can feel safe enough to say those things to, how you're feeling, it transforms so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so I think I remember what came up before. It's about when Lena was talking about not having space in the world, not feeling like you're not able to have space in the world. I always had this thing that people knew better than me, that they knew how to do life. They got it right. They were right. And I think that's a big thing that's changed here. And it's about, gosh, there's so many things that have come up. And when he was talking about the annoyance of the neighbor, and I realized that I took on other people's annoyances and tried to dumb down a situation to stop other people being annoyed. And I realized that's not just my ex, but which was a biggie, because he was annoyed with everything in the end. But my parents, my mum didn't like noisy children. So I had to keep my children quiet. I had to be quiet. Just, and I think I hadn't really thought about it until we were just talking about it. I think that's extended out to lots of things, like even at work, in a a conference room situation. Even I would be the subservient one that gets the coffees, that clears the coffees. And I remember somebody saying to me, my boss saying to me, Louise, that's not, you don't have to do that. You don't have to apologize and do those things. But I would always put myself at the bottom and didn't think I had good ideas or a voice. I'm starting to realize that I could just express, and it's taken how it's taken. Like I always had this expectation it had to be taken a certain way, it had to be received and in a certain way. Yeah.
That's huge. That's absolutely huge. That's
Mm. It feels
taking
huge.
a
Yeah.
different place in the world. Yeah, that's brilliant. Love it.
Yeah. Yeah. But from a sensory point of view, what that, like, I just feel more, it's kind of paradox, isn't it? We talk about, we're not the body, but that I feel more in the body, like there's more.
Yeah, that doesn't feel paradoxical to me. I mean,
Yeah.
we've been hijacked by the mind all our lives. And kind
Yeah.
of the result of that is that we've ignored the body a lot, or we've treated the body like something that needs pills to fix or whatever. Our body has been our enemy a lot of the time because it's been
Mm.
overweight or whatever. Whatever. If it gets sick, it's our enemy. So yeah, this changes the whole thing, and all of a sudden, but you will reach the stage where you'll also recognize that you're not that either.
I heard you say that before.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's almost a novelty to, because it talks constantly, like
absolutely. Yeah,
it's constantly got something to say about, but it's not words. It's
yep,
yeah,
yeah. And one thing
and it changes all the time.
yes,
Yeah.
sure. And the body doesn't lie, right? So
Mm.
now this is a bit of a tricky one because it's not to say that the body always tells what is actual, right? But when it doesn't lie, it can be authentically responding to a false idea. So it's telling the truth about what it believes or what it's fed. And so if we have a story and we're responding to the story, that response is authentic and accurate, but the story can be way off beam. So
Yes,
yeah,
I
it's a
saw
bit of
that saw that recently. Yeah. So it's not the relative right and wrongs. It's the authenticity that it's responding to. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
So you're in a great discovery place by the sound of it too. I love that.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. And there's lots of life stuff going on, but it's I love the word. I started saying they're juicy. Get that from you. Um, yeah, it's just
Yeah, good stuff.
mm. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we're just coming up for 3 hours, so it's getting close to tea time here. If anybody's got anything to bring up, let's go. Otherwise, I'll go and have tea or dinner. I'm told it's called dinner. Well, my lower class family always called it tea. Yeah. Okay. Well, it's been great as always. I'm just blown away by how it's never once has it not been great. It's just great. I love it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
See you
Thank
later.
Bye,
you.
everyone. Bye, Bianca.
Oh, she's gone already.